This video I want to speak about the difference between a fighter and a master, according to my eyes. I was thinking about this other day. This kind of goes back to that article about that thing that was going on in China. They labeled it improperly in my eyes. They said MMA fighter versus Wing Chun master. I have a really big issue with people calling people masters that aren't truly masters. I think if we're going to use that word, we got to use it properly. A master, just like we use the word God, we should use that properly. We use the word love, we should use it properly. We shouldn't be calling lust love, and we shouldn't be calling the devil God, So don't call a student a master. Don't call a novice a master. Don't call a beginner a master. So fighter, you notice that they don't ever really say MMA master. They always say MMA fighter, and that's more of just like a practitioner. A fighter is somebody like who is just is like a competitor, like a boxer. So it's like a different way of saying boxer. You know, there's a fighter, there's a boxer, there's a player. It's like saying player, like basketball player. They don't ever say basketball master, football master. Football player, basketball player, MMA fighter. Like it's pretty much like saying MMA player. A player of MMA, a player of basketball, a player of boxing. Boxing, so fighter is like a student, like a competitor. Now then there's the teacher, and then there's the coach. But you shouldn't. There's instructor, teacher, coach, but you shouldn't call them masters. So basketball players, they got coaches. Football players, they got coaches. So imagine if a basketball player got mad at his coach and then he beat up the coach, or not just beat up the coach, but he wanted to make a point to the coach, and then he played one-on-one with the coach and he beat the coach in one-on-one. Well, what do you expect? You know what I mean? Like, say Phil Jackson is playing one-on-one with Michael Jordan and Michael Jordan wins. Well, he's supposed to win. He's Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant beats Phil Jackson in one-on-one. But the coach is there for mental. So he's not there for the physical. So he's giving the mental to the player so he could be enhanced. So just because Michael Jordan can beat Phil Jackson in one-on-one, it doesn't really mean anything, because that's not what Phil Jackson is there for. He's there for the mental to help this person progress, this player. So it's the same thing with the boxing. Cus D'Amato and Mike Tyson. Cus D'Amato had the mental. See, he was the coach, so he's coaching Mike Tyson. But imagine Mike Tyson got mad at Cus D'Amato and just beat him up in the boxing ring. Well, what do you expect? Mike Tyson is representing the physical. Cus D'Amato's representing the mental. They come together to combine powers, so then, Mike Tyson can be successful, because Mike Tyson doesn't have the mental. He needs the mental from his coach. So basically, the Wing Chun person might have been a teacher. He might have been an instructor. And then the MMA fighter was just a fighter. He just had the physical, but he might have not had the mental. The Wing Chun person could have had the mental, but he didn't have the physical. So, but he's not a master. Like, if you call somebody he could be an instructor, he could be a teacher, he could be a coach. But a master is somebody who has truly mastered what they do. So Floyd Mayweather Jr. is representing a master in boxing. So he's a boxing master because he's never lost. And he's fought 50 times. I'm not talking about somebody who just fought one time and is 1-0, but 50-0. So he's a master at what he does. Michael Jordan, he lost a lot of basketball games, but he's won a lot as well, and he's won 6 championships, and it's debatable whether or not he's the greatest basketball player to ever live. Now, even though he's lost in basketball before, because he has won so many in comparison to all his losses, and in comparison to the entire history of the NBA, they may rank him as the #1 person in basketball ever. So he could be maybe considered a master in basketball because he has lost less games than everybody else, or most of everybody else, and he has won more champions than pretty much everybody else. But it's debatable. Some people might accept him as the basketball master. Some people might not. They might not consider him the master of basketball. So say you got a chess master, and he's lost one time, but he only lost one time, and then the second best chess master is or chess player lost 50 times. This person, chess master, lost one time. The second best in the world lost 50 times. Then this person that lost just one time might be considered the chess master, the master of chess, because he only lost one time, and nobody else is even close to his level of expertise. He might have won 10,000 times and lost one time, and then the next person after him won 900 times and lost 50 times. So based on the record and the comparison, the person that's won 10,000 times and lost once is considered the master of chess. So a master is somebody who's either perfect or near perfect, and pretty much the best in the world. So Usain Bolt, as of right now in history, he's the master of the 100-meter dash. Now, is he the current master? No, because he's gotten slower, but he's the world record holder, so he is the master of that event, based on his achievement of that record that has not been beaten ever. So he is the master of that run. So a master is somebody who's perfect or near perfect. Now, people's perception of who they consider a master is subjective. So say you're a martial artist and you're pretty good at what you do, and then you spar against a bunch of people that you're much better than. And then they acknowledge your greatness, and then they might consider you a master because you're so much better than where they're at. So they will acknowledge you as a master, but then you get challenged by somebody who's better than you, and then that person that's challenging you, that's actually better than you, he doesn't consider you a master because he's better than where you're at. So he doesn't acknowledge you as a master. So now the way the word master works, other people could call you a master because they accept you as one, because they acknowledge that you're at a higher level than where they're at. So they acknowledge you as a master of your craft, and they want to learn from you. But it doesn't mean that the whole world would consider you as a master, because now, there's going to be a lot of talented people out there, and chances are there's going to be people out there that are better than what you can do. And then the people will place those people above your status, and then now you're no longer considered a master according to their eyes. So that word right there, I think, should be used more seldomly. It shouldn't be just thrown around and just given to anybody. They need to really represent that, pretty much for the world, not just for just a small community. So people could say that they're teachers, instructors, students. So if it would have been hey, MMA fighter versus Wing Chun fighter, that would have been more properly labeled. And the reason why is because if somebody studied one system, say the Wing Chun system, they studied that for 20 years, then that's what they're going to be representing. They're not going to be representing boxing or wrestling because they didn't wrestle for 20 years and they didn't box for 20 years. They studied this Wing Chun system for 20 years, and that's what they're using within that engagement or trying to use, and then they will say, hey, I'm a Wing Chun fighter, or I'm a Wing Chun student, or I'm a Wing Chun instructor. And then you got somebody else who's trying to represent the MMA, and then they say he's an MMA fighter, or he's an MMA student, you know. But don't call him MMA master. Don't call him a Wing Chun master, because a master is somebody that's perfect. So don't call somebody who's imperfect perfect. You know, that label is supposed to be saved for the people who are truly perfect. And really, in reality, there's no such thing as perfection, but there is such a thing as close to perfection. Like Usain Bolt in the 100-meter dash, like Michael Jordan in basketball, like Floyd Mayweather Jr. in boxing, like what's his name, Rocky Marciano in boxing, because he died undefeated, you know. So even Muhammad Ali is a great boxer, but he's not considered, in my eyes, he's not considered a master because he lost, not just one time, but several times. Mike Tyson lost several times, and there's a lot of people, you know, there's other boxers like Rocky Marciano and Floyd Mayweather Jr. who went undefeated. So because they went undefeated for so long, they have proven that it can be done, and that you know, Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali are not truly masters because they have losses under their belt, you know. And even Michael Jordan, you know what I mean, like, he came back out of retirement and he didn't do too well, and it just tarnished his reputation. So this word master, it pretty much shouldn't really be just given to people. It's stuff that just, it doesn't come around often at all, you know. And pretty much if somebody's your teacher, somebody's your instructor, somebody's your father, you know, don't call them your master, you know, when they're not. You know, like, I just feel the label should be more accurately, you know, used. You know, and it's not just just easily given. Like, somebody could be your father, but don't call him your master. I mean, if you want to call him your master, then fine, because that's your master. But don't advertise this person to be a master of the world, because he is not that. So even Bruce Lee, even though he was so great at what he did, even he wasn't considered even he doesn't label himself as a master. You don't never have him say, you never heard him say Master Bruce Lee. That just doesn't fit well. He never said Master Bruce Lee. You know, it's just Bruce Lee. You know, they never even say Master Jet Li, Master Donnie Yen. Like, you know, that's not what they were representing. You know, but other people can consider them a master, but they don't have anything, they can't do anything about that. Other people could say, hey, that's a master, but that's their subjective opinion. Doesn't mean that he's a master, like a true master for all. You know, so, you know, I think that's what people have to kind of, you know, I think that's something to think about when you label things. You know, like, alright, anybody could be a basketball player. Anybody says, oh, I'm a basketball player. Anybody could be could be a practitioner of boxing. Anybody could be a practitioner of MMA. But who truly are masters of the sport of MMA? Who is a master of the sport of boxing? Who is a master of the sport of football? You know, they could say, essentially they could say Tom Brady is the master of football of the NFL. You know, the master of a quarterback in the NFL. Some people could say that he is that. Michael Jordan is a master of basketball, they could say. Some people could say that Tiger Woods is a master of golf. Some people could say that Floyd Mayweather is a master of boxing. But still, those are subjective. You know, some people may not agree with my statements. You know, I might consider Bruce Lee a master of martial arts, but that's still my subjective, you know, opinion. That's not necessarily true. You know, so, but to say that this person is a true master, you know, like, it's not something that should just be given to just anybody. You know, and that's the difference that I see between a fighter and a master. You know, so if somebody is a master of Taekwondo, then if you play that game of Taekwondo with them, then he should not lose because he's a master. If somebody claims that he's a master of martial arts, now it's pretty much because martial arts is so vast, it's almost like he has to be perfect in everything, which is impossible. So that label can't really be truly obtained, like, to be represented worldwide, because he has to be a master in pretty much everything, which is impossible. Somebody could say he's a master of boxing, and then within that game of boxing, he's a master, because he's perfect in it. He doesn't lose. That's like Floyd Mayweather Jr. Somebody could say he's a master in kickboxing. So then within the realm of kickboxing, within those rules, and he is a master in that, then he might be that. If he's perfect, doesn't lose. Somebody might be a master in Sansao, which is Chinese kickboxing. So within the realm of Sansao, he does not lose. He might be a master in that. So if you're going to say that you're a master, you got to say specifically what you're a master of. You can't say that you're a master in everything. That's impossible. You know, so are you a master in boxing? Are you a master in kickboxing? Are you a master in MMA? Like, even Conor McGregor wasn't a master in MMA, but some people considered him to be because they just liked him a lot. But he wasn't a master in boxing, that's clearly, because he's not a boxer. Somebody who's a master in wrestling doesn't mean that he's a master in MMA. And somebody who's a master in MMA, which is not really possible, but say there's a master in MMA, in the UFC, there's a master, doesn't mean that he's going to be a master in wrestling, because they're not the same thing. Somebody who's a master in bodybuilding doesn't mean he's going to be a master in powerlifting, because they're different. They both dealing with lifting weights, but they're different. Somebody who's a master in football doesn't mean he's going to be a master in soccer. Somebody who's a master in baseball doesn't mean he's going to be a master in golf. Somebody who's a master in basketball, like Michael Jordan, doesn't mean he's going to be a master in baseball, doesn't mean he's going to be a master in golf. And he clearly wasn't. So if you're going to claim yourself to be a master in anything, you need to be specific with what you are mastering. So somebody who's a master in cycling, in the Tour de France, doesn't mean that he's going to be a master in, you know, in mountain biking, just because it's dealing with bikes. You know, so to be a master in anything, it's like a lifetime of work, and it's not easily achievable, and very few people in the world could represent that. So only Usain Bolt could represent and say he's a master of the 100-meter dash, and then nobody could touch him there. And even the 200-meter dash, nobody could touch him there. Until somebody beats his record, he is the master of that. But that's not an easy achievement. So just because Justin Gatlin beat him in one of the races, Usain Bolt's still the master because he holds the record that Justin Gatlin can't beat. You know, so Usain Bolt's still the master because it's a measurement of time, and he's got the greatest time ever. You know, so that's my view in it. Between fighter and master, I'm really sensitive to the way that word is being used. I think that it's being used improperly, and it's making martial art, people that practice martial arts, is making them look more ridiculous, more silly, and people tend to be more disrespectful towards people that practice martial arts because they use this master label so often that they call everybody a master. They're calling a teacher the master. They're calling an instructor a master, but he's not truly a master. You know, you see like martial art people use that labels too much. Oh, he's Taekwondo master, karate master, kung fu master, all these master titles. And then you got like boxers, fighters, wrestlers beating up on the so-called masters, and then it makes the whole martial arts community look like idiots. Like, why are you calling these people masters and they're getting their beat up and getting demolished out there? Like, and then they got masters and they got black belts. It's like you got black belts that are getting beat up by people that don't have any belts. The wrestler, the boxer, the fighter are beating up the masters and the black belts. So in the martial arts community, they got to get rid of the belts, all of them, and they got to get rid of the titles because they're not representing the titles or the belts the way that it's supposed to be represented. And then there will be more respect for the people that practice the martial arts because they're not mislabeling people and pretty much giving people recognition of which they don't deserve. You know, Usain Bolt is the true master of the 100-meter dash. Just because somebody ran a 10-second or 11-second dash in junior high or high school or college or in the local community, it doesn't make him a master because he still didn't beat Usain Bolt's time. So these martial arts so-called masters, they need to get rid of those labels and those belts. They need to get rid of those belts. Because when you have a black belt and you're advertising to the public that you're a black belt, you're pretty much saying to everybody that I'm so good, I'm so great at what I do, and I am a master or whatever, you know. I am so great. It's not a sign of humbleness. It's not. It's arrogance. It's ego. It's pride. And that doesn't belong in the martial arts. You know, I think that stuff needs to be eliminated. All the belts and all those ridiculous titles. You know. And that's my opinion.